The only investments I'd keep during a market crash, let me tell you exactly what I would do if I woke up tomorrow and the stock market had just crashed 50%. And I don't mean what I might do after careful consideration. I don't mean what I would consider doing. I'm telling you what I would actually do without hesitation, because I have lived through this scenario more times than most people have lived through recessions. I have seen markets cut in half, watched trillions of dollars evaporate in a matter of weeks, and listened to the collective panic of the entire financial world. And every single time, I have done the exact same thing. I have bought aggressively while everyone else was selling in a state of sheer terror. The crash of 2008, the crash of 2000, the crash of 1987, and the crash of 1973 and 74. I was there for all of them. And I can tell you with absolute, unwavering certainty that those moments of maximum fear, those moments when it truly feels like the financial world is ending, are the moments that create generational wealth. That's not just an investment philosophy, it's the most important historical fact about wealth creation you will ever learn. Now, I know that sounds like a bold claim, but this actually happened, and here's the proof. In October of 2008, during the most severe financial crisis since the Great Depression, I wrote an op-ed for the New York Times with the simple headline, "Buy American I Am." People thought I had finally lost my mind. They said the world was ending, and I was telling people to buy stocks. But I was right. If you had bought stocks in October 2008 and simply held them, you would have made 5, 6, even 7 times your money over the following 15 years. The people who panicked and sold locked in their losses forever. The people who had the courage to buy created wealth that changed their families' lives for generations. And if you're in America, Canada, the UK, or Australia, this directly affects your future. Because a market crash doesn't care about your geography. It doesn't care about your pension. It doesn't care about your retirement timeline. It presents the same threat and the same opportunity to every investor, regardless of where you live. But it gets so much deeper and more important than just a simple buy low, sell high story. If your first reaction to a 50% market drop is pure fear, you're absolutely right to feel that way. That's a perfectly normal, biologically hardwired response. But what I'm about to show you is not a strategy for the faint of heart. It's for those who understand that great businesses continue operating regardless of stock prices. It's for those who understand that the temporary is not permanent. Let me walk you through what's really happening when the market crashes and reveal the only 4 stocks that would make my list for one simple reason. They are the bedrock of a modern, durable portfolio, but we have to start at the beginning, because understanding the psychology of a crash is more important than understanding the numbers. You cannot wait until the crash happens to figure out what you want to buy. By then, it is too late. Your emotions take over. Fear clouds your judgment. You freeze when you should be acting. That is why today, right now, while markets are calm and your thinking is clear, I am going to share with you the strategy I have perfected over 70 years of investing and the 4 core investments that would form the foundation of my portfolio during a crash. Let me take you back to a moment that shaped everything I know about buying during crashes. It was October of 2008. Lehman Brothers had just collapsed. The financial system was on the brink of a complete meltdown. Banks were failing, credit markets were frozen, and the Dow Jones had dropped from over 14,000 to under 8,000 in just over a year, and it was still falling. I remember sitting in my office in Omaha, watching the chaos unfold on television. Every expert, every talking head, every financial professional was predicting absolute disaster. They said we were heading into another Great Depression. They said the banking system would collapse. They said capitalism itself was in danger. And what did I do? I bought massive amounts of stock. I invested in Goldman Sachs and General Electric on terms that were incredibly favorable to Berkshire Hathaway, not because I was trying to be brave, and not because I had some special insight into the future. I bought because I had done the work beforehand. I knew with deep conviction which businesses I wanted to own and at what prices. When you have that knowledge, buying during a crash is not scary, it is exciting. It is like walking into your favorite store and finding everything you want on sale at 50% off. You don't panic when prices drop. You load up the cart And here's the part that Wall Street does not want you to understand. The financial industry makes money when you do things. When you buy, when you sell, when you hire advisors, when you purchase complex products. Every transaction generates fees. Every layer of complexity generates commissions. The industry has a powerful incentive to make investing seem complicated because complicated means profitable for them, but complicated does not mean better for you. The evidence is overwhelming that simple, low-cost strategies outperform complex, expensive ones over time. The S&P 500 index fund beats the vast majority of actively managed funds over any meaningful time period, not because index funds are brilliant, but because they avoid the fees and mistakes that plague active management. At 70 or 80, you do not have time to recover from the mistakes that complexity invites. Every unnecessary decision is an opportunity to do the wrong thing. Every additional holding is something else to monitor and worry about. Every layer of complexity is a place for something to go wrong. This is the core of the issue. We are not just talking about making money, we are talking about preserving it. So let's talk about the criteria I use to select stocks that can survive and thrive in any environment. This is crucial because not every stock that drops 50% is a good buy. In fact, most of them are not. Some stocks drop 50% because the business is fundamentally broken. Some drop because they were wildly overvalued to begin with. Some drop 50% and then drop another 50% after that because the problems are even worse than people realize. The stocks I want to own in a crash have very specific characteristics, a durable set of filters that ensure I am buying a business, not just a stock. First, the business must be nearly certain to exist and be profitable 10 years from now. This sounds obvious, but most investors ignore it completely. They buy whatever has dropped the most without asking whether the company will even survive. Weak companies go bankrupt. Companies with too much debt. Companies in dying industries. Companies with products people do not need. They don't just decline temporarily, they disappear entirely. I only want to own businesses where survival is essentially guaranteed, where the products or services are so essential that people will keep buying them no matter what happens to the economy. Second, the business must have a genuine competitive moat. This means something protects it from competition. Maybe it is a brand so powerful that customers pay premium prices out of habit and emotion. Maybe it is a network effect where the product becomes more valuable as more people use it. Maybe it is cost advantages that competitors simply cannot match without a moat. Even a good business can be destroyed by competition over time. With a moat, a business can compound value for decades. Third, the business must generate strong free cash flow. I want companies that produce more cash than they consume. Companies that can fund their own growth, pay dividends, buy back shares, and weather economic storms without needing to raise money on unfavorable terms. In a crash, capital becomes scarce and expensive. Companies that generate their own cash are in control of their destiny. Companies that depend on constant fundraising are at the mercy of market conditions. Fourth, the business must have capable and honest management. This is harder to assess than the other criteria, but it matters enormously. Over 10 or 20 years, management decisions compound just like investment returns. Good managers allocate capital wisely, treat shareholders fairly, and navigate challenges effectively. Bad managers destroy value through poor decisions, excessive compensation, and empire building. I want to partner with managers I trust. Fifth, and this is critical for crash buying specifically, the stock must be trading at a price that offers a significant margin of safety in a crash. Even great businesses can get cut in half. But if you buy a great business at a price, well, below its intrinsic value, time is on your side. The value will eventually be recognized. You can afford to be patient. You can afford to be wrong about the timing. The margin of safety protects you from permanent loss, even if things get worse before they get better. These are my 5 filters, and when I apply them rigorously, very few stocks make the cut. Most businesses fail at least one of these tests, but the businesses that pass all 5, those are the ones I want to own in a crash. Those are the ones where a 50% price decline is not a warning sign, but an invitation. Now, Let me tell you about the four specific stocks that would be the cornerstone of my crash portfolio. The first stock I would buy if markets crash 50% is Apple. Now, I know what you might be thinking, Warren. Apple has already had an incredible run. It is one of the largest companies in the world. How much upside can there be? And if it crashed 50%, wouldn't that mean something is seriously wrong? Let me address those concerns directly. Apple is not just a technology company. Apple is one of the finest businesses ever created in the history of capitalism, and I do not say that lightly. I have studied thousands of companies over 7 decades. I have seen great businesses and I have seen pretenders. Apple is the real thing. The iPhone is not just a product, it is the center of over 1 billion people's digital lives. Think about that. Over 1 billion people carry an iPhone with them everywhere they go. They wake up with it, they go to sleep with it, they check it hundreds of times per day, and they chose to pay a premium price for this device even though the cheaper alternatives exist. That tells you something profound about the value Apple creates. People are not buying iPhones because they have to. They are buying them because they want to, because the experience is superior, because the ecosystem is so integrated that switching to a competitor would be painful, because the brand represents something they want to be associated with. This is not a commodity business where the lowest price wins. This is a business built on emotional connection, on ecosystem lock-in, on continuous innovation that keeps customers loyal for life. But the iPhone is just the beginning of why Apple would be my first purchase in a crash. What really excites me is the services business. Every month, Apple collects money from over 1 billion people. iCloud storage fees, Apple Music subscriptions, App Store purchases, Apple TV Plus subscriptions, Apple Pay transaction fees, Apple Arcade, Apple Fitness, Apple News. The services revenue is recurring, high margin, and growing faster than the hardware business. 10 years ago, services was a small part of Apple's business. Today, it generates over $80 billion per year in revenue, and it is still in the early stages. Why would Apple crash 50%? Probably because of some macroeconomic event, some global crisis, some general panic that drags down all stocks regardless of quality. That is exactly the kind of crash where you want to be. Buying, the business would not be impaired. iPhone users would not suddenly switch to Android because the stock market crashed. Services subscribers would not cancel their iCloud storage. The ecosystem would remain intact. You would simply be getting a piece of this extraordinary business at half price. Let me put some numbers on this. Apple generates over $100 billion in free cash flow annually at a 50% lower stock price. You would be buying that cash flow at a dramatically lower multiple. And Apple uses that cash flow to benefit shareholders through massive buyback programs that reduce the share count every year, growing dividends that reward patient owners, and a cash pile that gives them flexibility to invest in whatever opportunities emerge. If Apple crashed 50% tomorrow, I would back up the truck. I would buy as much as I could, not because I am speculating on a quick recovery, but because I would be acquiring a piece of one of the greatest businesses ever built at a price that offers exceptional long-term returns. The second stock I would buy in a 50% crash is Visa. Most people think of Visa as a credit card company. They think Visa lends money to consumers and makes money on interest payments. That is completely wrong. Visa does not lend money. Visa does not take credit risk. Visa is something far better. Visa is a toll road. Every time someone swipes a Visa card anywhere in the world, Visa takes a small percentage of the transaction. Not the credit risk, just a fee for processing the payment. The banks that issue Visa cards take the credit risk. The merchants who accept Visa cards pay the fees. Visa just sits in the middle collecting tolls on trillions of dollars of transactions flowing across its network every year. Think about the beauty of this business model. Visa does not need to build factories. Visa does not need to manage inventory. Visa does not need to worry about customers not paying their bills. Visa just needs to maintain its network and watch the money flow through. The operating margins are extraordinary. Over 60% of revenue drops to operating income. That is a level of profitability that almost no other business can match. and the growth runway is enormous. The world is still in the early stages of shifting from cash to electronic payments. In developed markets like the United States and Europe, maybe 60 to 70% of transactions are electronic. But in emerging markets like Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America, the vast majority of transactions are still done in cash. As these economies develop, as more people join the banking system, as more merchants accept electronic payments, Visa's transaction volume will continue to grow for decades. Visa also benefits from inflation. When prices go up, the value of transactions goes up. Visa's percentage fee is based on the transaction amount, so inflation automatically increases Visa's revenue without the company having to do anything. The competitive moat around Visa is massive. There are only two major global payment networks, Visa and MasterCard. Building a competing network would require convincing millions of merchants to accept a new card, billions of consumers to carry a new card, and thousands of banks to issue a new card. The chicken and egg problem is nearly impossible to solve. If Visa crashed 50% in a market panic, you would be buying one of the highest quality businesses in the world at a significant discount. The third stock I would buy in a 50% crash is Costco. Now, this might surprise you. Costco is a retailer. Retail is supposed to be a terrible business, low margins, intense competition, vulnerable to e-commerce disruption. Why would I want to own a retailer? Because Costco is not a normal retailer. Costco is a membership business disguised as a warehouse store, and understanding this distinction is the key to understanding why Costco is one of my favorite businesses. Most retailers make money by marking up products. They buy something for $10, sell it for $15, and pocket the $5 difference. This model has low margins because competition forces everyone to match prices. If one store charges too much, customers go somewhere else. Costco operates completely differently. Costco barely marks up its products at all. The average markup is only about 11%, compared to 25 to 30% at typical retailers. Costco is not trying to make money on the merchandise. It's trying to offer such incredible value that customers feel compelled to pay the annual membership fee, and that membership fee is where Costco makes almost all of its profit. Think about what this means. Costco has over 60 million households paying membership fees. The renewal rate is over 90%. 90% of members renew every single year. That is subscription-like recurring revenue with almost no marginal cost to serve. Once you pay your membership, Costco does not need to spend more money to keep you. They just need to keep offering great value so you renew next year. This business model creates a virtuous cycle that competitors cannot replicate. Costco is also virtually immune to e-commerce disruption. Amazon cannot replicate the Costco experience. You cannot sell giant packages of toilet paper, cases of wine, rotisserie, chickens, prescription drugs, gasoline, and eye exams through a website. The treasure hunt experience of walking through a Costco warehouse, discovering unexpected deals, loading up a cart with bold purchases, this cannot be digitized. Costco's $5 rotisserie chickens are loss leaders that drive traffic. Their $1.50 hot dog and soda combo has not changed price since 1985. These are strategic assets that build customer loyalty in ways that pure e-commerce cannot match. If Costco crashed 50%, it would not be because the business was broken. The business would keep humming along, collecting membership fees, serving loyal customers, and compounding value. You would simply be getting this wonderful business at a much lower price. The fourth and final stock I would buy in a 50% crash is Berkshire Hathaway. Yes, my own company. And before you think this is self-serving, let me explain exactly why Berkshire would be one of my top choices in a crash scenario. Berkshire Hathaway is not really a stock. It is a collection of over 70 operating businesses plus a massive portfolio of publicly traded stocks plus over $300 billion in cash and short-term investments. When you buy Berkshire, you are buying insurance companies like Geico and General Re. You are buying a railroad that moves goods across America. You are buying an energy company with utilities and pipelines. You are buying transaction amount, so inflation automatically increases Visa's revenue without the company having to do anything. The competitive moat around Visa is massive. There are only two major global payment networks, Visa and MasterCard. Building a competing network would require convincing millions of merchants to accept a new card, billions of consumers to carry a new card, and thousands of banks to issue a new card. The chicken and egg problem is nearly impossible to solve. If Visa crashed 50% in a market panic, you would be buying one of the highest quality businesses in the world at a significant discount. The third stock I would buy in a 50% crash is Costco. Now, this might surprise you. Costco is a retailer. Retail is supposed to be a terrible business, low margins, intense competition, vulnerable to e-commerce disruption. Why would I want to own a retailer? Because Costco is not a normal retailer. Costco is a membership business disguised as a warehouse store, and understanding this distinction is the key to understanding why Costco is one of my favorite businesses. Most retailers make money by marking up products. They buy something for $10, sell it for $15, and pocket the $5 difference. This model has low margins because competition forces everyone to match prices. If one store charges too much, customers go somewhere else. Costco operates completely differently. Costco barely marks up its products at all. The average markup is only about 11%, compared to 25 to 30% at typical retailers. Costco is not trying to make money on the merchandise. It's trying to offer such incredible value that customers feel compelled to pay the annual membership fee. And that membership fee is where Costco makes almost all of its profit. Think about what this means. Costco has over 60 million households paying membership fees. The renewal rate is over 90%. 90% of members renew every single year. That is subscription-like recurring revenue with almost no marginal cost to serve. Once you pay your membership, Costco does not need to spend more money to keep you. They just need to keep offering great value so you renew next year. This business model creates a virtuous cycle that competitors cannot replicate. Costco is also virtually immune to e-commerce disruption. Amazon cannot replicate the Costco experience. You cannot sell giant packages of toilet paper, cases of wine, rotisserie chickens, prescription drugs, gasoline, and eye exams through a website. The treasure hunt experience of walking through a Costco warehouse, discovering unexpected deals, loading up a cart with bulk purchases. This cannot be digitized. Costco's $5 rotisserie chickens are loss leaders that drive traffic. Their $1.50 hot dog and soda combo has not changed price since 1985. These are strategic assets that build customer loyalty in ways that pure e-commerce cannot match. If Costco crashed 50%, it would not be because the business was broken. The business would keep humming along, collecting membership fees, serving loyal customers, and compounding value. You would simply be getting this wonderful business at a much lower price. The fourth and final stock I would buy in a 50% crash is Berkshire Hathaway. Yes, my own company. And before you think this is self-serving, let me explain exactly why Berkshire would be one of my top choices in a crash scenario. Berkshire Hathaway is not really a stock. It is a collection of over 70 operating businesses, plus a massive portfolio of publicly traded stocks, plus over $300 billion in cash and short-term investments. When you buy Berkshire, you are buying insurance companies like Geico and General Re. You are buying a railroad that moves goods across America. You are buying an energy company with utilities and pipelines. You are buying See's Candies and Dairy Queen and Fruit of the Loom and Benjamin Moore and Duracell. You are buying stakes in Apple, Coca-Cola, American Express, and Bank of America. This diversification is important in a crash scenario. Some businesses do better in recessions, some do worse. By owning a collection of businesses across many industries, Berkshire's overall earnings are more stable than any single company, but the real advantage Berkshire has in a crash is the cash over $300 billion sitting on the balance sheet waiting to be deployed. In a 50% market crash, when other companies are struggling to survive, when credit markets are frozen, when everyone is desperate for capital, Berkshire can be the buyer of last resort. Berkshire can make deals on terms that are incredibly favorable. We did this in 2008, investing in Goldman Sachs and General Electric at terms that generated billions in profits. We can do it again. This optionality is enormously valuable. Most companies have to sell assets in a crash to raise cash. Berkshire can buy assets in a crash because it has cash. This asymmetry means Berkshire often emerges from crashes even stronger than before. Having acquired businesses and made investments at bargain prices, there is also no debt to worry about. Berkshire's balance sheet is rock solid. If Berkshire crashed 50%, you would be buying a company with over $300 billion in cash at a lower price than the cash alone. You would be getting the 70 operating businesses essentially for free. You would be getting the stock portfolio for free. This is the kind of mathematical absurdity that sometimes happens in crashes where prices disconnect completely from intrinsic value. When that happens, you buy. Now, let me bring this all together. Choosing these four stocks is not really about the specific companies. It is about the principles of crash investing. And if you understand why I chose Apple, Visa, Costco, and Berkshire, you understand how to evaluate any opportunity when markets decline sharply. The common thread across all four businesses is durability. Each of these companies will exist and thrive no matter what happens in the broader economy. The second common thread is competitive advantage. Each of these businesses has something that protects it from competition. Apple has its ecosystem and brand. Visa has its network effects and scale. Costco has its membership model and value proposition. Berkshire has its diversification and balance sheet strength. The third common thread is cash generation. Each of these businesses produces significant free cash flow. They do not need to raise capital to grow. They can fund their own expansion, reward shareholders with dividends and buybacks, and weather economic storms without distress. Cash generation is the ultimate measure of business quality. But here's what most people do not understand. You cannot wait until the crash happens to figure out what you want to buy. By then it is too late. Your emotions take over. Fear clouds your judgment. You freeze when you should be acting. That is why today, right now, while markets are calm and your thinking is clear, you must prepare. This requires having a watch list of businesses you want to own. This requires having the emotional fortitude to act when everyone else is panicking. I keep coming back to this point because it is so important. The biggest obstacle to successful crash investing is not knowledge, it is temperament. When markets crash 50%, the news is uniformly terrible. Every headline screams disaster. Every expert predicts further declines. Your own portfolio is showing massive losses. Every instinct tells you to sell, to get out, to protect what you have left. But that is exactly when you need to be buying. The moment of maximum pessimism is the moment of maximum opportunity. Not because you are smarter than everyone else, but because you have done the work beforehand. I want to share something that most investors get wrong about crash investing. They think they need to catch the exact bottom. They think if they buy when the market is down 40% and it goes down another 10%, they have made a mistake. This is completely backwards thinking. If you buy a wonderful business at a wonderful price, it does not matter if the price goes a little lower after you buy. What matters is where the business will be in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years. The difference between buying at the absolute bottom and buying 10% above the bottom is essentially meaningless over long holding periods. But the difference between buying during a crash and not buying at all, that is enormous. That is life-changing. I have never caught the exact bottom of any crash. Not once in 70 years of investing. I bought during the crash of 2008. But prices kept falling for months after my purchases. Every single time I bought too early according to short-term price action, and every single time those purchases turned out to be incredible investments because I was focused on value, not on timing. This is the mindset you need to develop. Let me address the question of how much to buy during a crash. This depends on your individual situation, but I can share some principles. First, never invest money you might need in the next 5 years. Crashes can last longer than you expect, and you do not want to be forced to sell at low prices because you need the cash. Second, invest incrementally rather than all at once. If the market drops 50%, do not put all your available capital in on day one. Buy some. Wait. If prices drop further, buy more. This way you benefit from averaging in at different prices. Third, maintain enough liquidity to take advantage of extreme opportunities. The best deals often come at moments of maximum panic when sellers are desperate and buyers are scarce. Having cash available during these moments is enormously valuable. And let me tell you what not to do during a crash, because avoiding mistakes is just as important as making good investments. Do not sell your existing holdings just because prices have dropped. If you owned a great business at higher prices, it is an even better value at lower prices. Selling locks in losses and denies you the opportunity for recovery. Do not try to get clever with market timing. Do not attempt to sell before the crash gets worse and buy back at the bottom. This sounds great in theory, but almost never works in practice. You will sell too late and buy too early, or sell too early and watch prices recover without you. Do not abandon your investment plan because of fear. If you had a sensible long-term strategy before the crash, that strategy is still sensible during the crash, probably more sensible because prices are lower. Do not listen to the doom mongers and panic merchants. During crashes, the most bearish voices get the most attention. People who predict total collapse become celebrities, but they are almost always wrong. The world does not end. Markets recover, businesses continue operating. Life goes on. Do not concentrate everything in a single stock. Even wonderful businesses can face unexpected challenges. Diversification across several high-quality companies provides protection against the unknown. Do not borrow money to invest during a crash. Leverage can destroy you. If you borrow to buy stocks and prices drop further, you might face margin calls that force you to sell at the bottom. This is how people go broke during crashes. Stay away from leverage. I want to talk about the psychological preparation required for crash investing because this is where most people fail. It is easy to say you will buy when stocks are down 50%. It is much harder to actually do it when you are living through the crash. Your brain is wired to avoid pain. Buying stocks during a crash feels painful because you're likely to see immediate losses. Your portfolio might drop further. You might feel stupid for buying when everyone else is selling. Every evolutionary instinct tells you to run away from danger, and a crashing market triggers those danger instincts. The way to overcome this is through preparation and conviction. Preparation means doing the work beforehand. Know exactly which businesses you want to own. Understand their competitive advantages. Calculate rough estimates of their intrinsic value. Have a plan for how much you will buy at different price levels. When the crash comes, you do not have to think. You just execute the plan you already made. Conviction comes from understanding. If you truly understand why Apple or Visa or Costco or Berkshire are great businesses, you will not be shaken by temporary price declines. You will recognize that the underlying value has not changed. You will see the crash as a gift rather than a threat. But this conviction only comes from deep knowledge. Surface-level understanding evaporates under pressure. Only genuine understanding survives the emotional storm of a crash. Now let's zoom out and look at what this actually means, because the ramifications go way beyond just buying stocks. First, we have to consider the immediate political and economic fallout of a crash. There will be calls for government intervention, there will be panic in the media, and there will be a massive shift in public sentiment. But history tells us that the government almost always steps in to stabilize the system, and the markets eventually recover. The real danger is not the crash itself, but the permanent damage it does to the portfolios of those who panic and sell. Second, we have to consider the institutional implications. A market crash tests the very foundations of our financial system. It exposes the weaknesses in banks, in hedge funds, and in over-leveraged corporations. It is a stress test for the entire economy. And those that survive, those that have strong balance sheets and durable business models, will emerge stronger. Third, we have to consider the precedent being set. Every crash is different, but they all share one common trait. They reward the prepared and punish the unprepared. The investor who has done their homework will see the crash as the opportunity of a lifetime. The investor who has not will see it as a disaster. Let's talk about the big picture. The world is still in the early stages of massive economic shifts. We are moving from cash to electronic payments, from traditional retail to a hybrid of physical and digital, from fossil fuels to renewable energy, and from centralized to decentralized financial systems. The companies that can navigate these shifts, that can adapt and thrive, are the ones that will create enormous wealth over the next 20 to 30 years. The four stocks I've shared with you today are not just crash-proof. They are designed to benefit from these long-term trends. Apple is leading the way in personal technology and services. Visa is the backbone of the digital payments revolution. Costco is redefining the retail experience, and Berkshire is a diversified conglomerate that can deploy capital to take advantage of any opportunity that arises. But here's what I want you to understand. The specific stocks matter less than the principles behind the selection. If you can identify businesses that are durable, that have competitive moats, that generate free cash flow, that have great management, and that are available at prices that offer a margin of safety, you will do well as an investor. Let me close with some reflections on what I have learned about money and life over the last 7 decades. When I was young, I thought about money constantly. I was fascinated by compounding. I loved the game of investing. Building wealth was one of my greatest pleasures, and as I have aged, my relationship with money has changed. I still enjoy investing, but money itself has become less important to me. What matters more is the relationships, the impact, the meaning. I have come to believe that the purpose of wealth in the later stages of life is freedom and contribution. Freedom to spend your time as you choose with the people you love, doing things that matter to you, and contribution, using your resources to make the world better in whatever way is meaningful to you. A well-structured portfolio supports both of these purposes. It provides the income you need to live comfortably and independently, and it provides the capital you can deploy to causes and people you care about. I have been extraordinarily fortunate in my life, fortunate in my health, fortunate in my family, fortunate in the opportunities I have had, and yes, fortunate in the wealth I have accumulated. But I am most grateful for the wisdom that age has brought, the clarity about what matters and what does not. I hope that sharing this strategy provides some useful guidance for your own journey. But more than that, I hope it reminds you that the money is not the point. The money is just a tool. Use it wisely, protect it prudently, and then get on with the business of living a meaningful life. That is the best investment advice I can give to anyone in America, Canada, the UK, or Australia. It has taken me 94 years to fully understand it. I hope it takes you less. The greatest investment you can make at this stage of life is not in stocks or bonds. It is in the people and causes that matter to you. The portfolio exists to support that investment. Never let it become the end rather than the means. The stakes have never been higher, and we are just getting started. This story is far from over. In fact, we are on the brink of one of the greatest wealth creation opportunities of the modern era. If you want to see more videos that break down the strategies of the world's greatest investors, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. The next video will cover exactly how to position your portfolio for the inevitable recovery. Thank you for watching. And remember, be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy only when others are fearful.